Hi ducks, I'm just manifesting health and success through this smoothie. Usually I only talk about lovely books that I adore on here, but today I wanted to discuss things that I dislike in writing. You know, I feel lazy when I say that I'm bored by this book or I hate this book. I want to reach further than like my initial reaction and impulse to figure out the rhetoric and the real world implications of this thing that I don't like. This is also a great exercise for beginning writers. If you are strongly moved by a piece, no matter what emotion it is, figure out exactly wherefore, do some close reading, write it down somewhere, make your notes, and then figure out how you can either avoid or replicate it in your own work. Finally, as a Jewish woman, if I do not complain for 20 minutes a day, I will combust, so this is really just healthcare. It's a new month, let's go, let's talk about some things. I have my fruit, let's detox. I remember almost being turned off from reading in middle school because I was so bored by everything I saw in the YA section, especially the stuff that was specifically marked out for girls. Like there were 10 books that I just reread all the time, and then everything else just felt like it was condescending to me. That's just a general miasma though. More precisely, I don't like when authors use real-world brands in their fiction because it's very rarely a commentary on capitalism and consumerism. It's just an attention ploy to be like, hey kids, I also drink at the Starbucks. Modern Shakespeare adaptations or alternate ending type books are pretty bad 9 out of 10 times. I think the concept is great. Most of the plays are based on older storylines anyway, so there's already that sort of conversation, and I would love to see more interesting and accessible takes on the classic canon. I am also especially bratty about this because I grew up reading and performing Shakespeare. With the adaptations, form can be a big issue because you're adapting something that was a script into a more standard novel, so there's a lot more room to make your own descriptions and settings and backgrounds, or not. I think it's because the author is working from a place of trying to make these tedious old texts fun for the tweens who just want to text OMG with their BFFs. So if you explain something that's confusing and complex and unfamiliar, if you explain that thing well, then the kids will understand it. I can testify to that on both ends. Oh, I can feel myself getting shrill. There will be very basic things in plot structure and character development and themes and things like that that jump out to me and signal that this person has not read the play since they were bored in the 10th grade. These have mostly been gripes of personal taste so far, but I'm gonna talk a little more seriously now. I don't like to read triggering material for fun. I don't think anyone does. I have enough sort of upsetting things to work through for class and research. When I have downtime and I'm gonna read something that I know is going to bring things up for me, I want it to be the best writing. You know, all of these levels of emotional intelligence, the world around them. There are books that are bigoted in a very straightforward way, but what worries me more is when authors believe that they're being progressive and productive, but it's just a disingenuous show of compassion. So what we can do as critical readers is figure out exactly what they are truly doing and how. There's this subgenre of books about the Holocaust, about Jewish people, written by people who are not Jewish, and this trait pops up a lot. I'm going to talk about it within the context of the Holocaust because that's what I'm most familiar with. I don't want to collapse the arguments and say that my theory applies to each case because each invocation has its own context and repercussions that need to be discussed. But basically every other year there will be some prize-winning best-selling book about Jewish suffering written by someone who thinks pogrom is a kind of fruit. And then sometimes these books get canonized and are used in syllabuses across the world, and they're used to teach younger students about the Holocaust, which is really scary because most of the times these books have really dangerous misconceptions about anti-Semitism and the rise of fascism, to say the least. My theory as to why these books keep getting written is that the authors frankly are not creative enough to render gravitas and drama on their own, and they see the Holocaust as a stock character to hype things up and make things just automatically poignant. Now let's continue with the subject of trauma. Male authors can do a lot better when they're trying to write about women. My big thesis statement is just because you're writing about rape doesn't make it feminist or useful. There are entire schools of thought dedicated to explaining why books are bad sometimes. I'm linking to some of my favorite critical theory essays and articles below. Although I do spend most of my time thinking about and explaining why books are good, this sort of criticism is also very necessary. And overall, I think the common factor between what I dislike in writing is when it's like bleach clear that the writer didn't do all of their research. In my very personal opinion, these traits display a lot of confidence. They don't need fact checkers or consultants or sensitivity readers because whatever they know right now is going to be the most correct and literary position forever. To that, I say, where is the fear of God in this novel? So those are some of my literary pet peeves. What really grills your cheese when you're reading a book and forces you out of the experience? Today's fact is that I have been late to every single English class this year that I have attended. I have another one in 27 minutes and I'm gonna try my best. That's all for me. I'm going to very quickly eat a turkey sandwich now. Later, nerds!